thanks to a plethora of moves this year, Bo Brock. And I'd be remiss if I didn't start with the 28th pick in the 2024 NFL draft. One friend of the program, Darius Robinson, who I think, again, might play some defensive end. This show, we are dubbing him a defensive tackle / lineman.
Yeah, it's exciting. And I think, whether or not it's deserved, first round pick, there's going to be a lot of pressure on Darius to perform and elevate this group. I think that they did a decent job in free agency and in raising the talent floor level, but there was only really one direction they could go. Like in 2023, the collection of defensive linemen, I talked to Brandon Thorne, and I encourage people to go check out the interview that we unveiled over the weekend.
It's excellent.
That, he said that probably the talent of defensive linemen in the league is at its peak. And it's like, man, we sure didn't see it in the desert. But now I think they're playing catch up, and Darius Robinson is kind of leading the charge. But you also have the addition of Justin Jones and Bilal Nichols, and the emergence of Dante Stills in the first draft class for Monty Ossenford, who I think is going to have a rotational role, and somebody that they like in LJ Collier. So, like, there's your 5 right there, barring any injury. And man, is it a significant upgrade over what they were running out there with Lecky Fotu and, Ben Stilley, with all due respect, played hard for this team last year. And, a couple guys that, have been on and off NFL rosters and haven't had consistent production at the NFL level, where I think that they've got, 5 guys they should feel very comfortable with.
Yeah, I think it's as good of a job, and I mean this wholeheartedly, that you can do in a single offseason, given where the state of the position group was. And again, like, I wanted Leonard Williams. If Christian Wilkinson had signed with this team, I'd be excited about it. But there was a lot of money being thrown around at those 2 players. And the Cardinals said, you know what? Here's what we're going to do, because we know our head coach is not going to run these guys into the ground. Let's get what we consider an above average starter in Justin Jones that can pressure from the interior, that has been known to sack the quarterback. Let's get him at a reasonable cost. We'll still give him a decent amount of money. And let's get another veteran to pair with him in Bilal Nichols, who is just a lunch pail mentality. Again, doesn't miss games. Somebody that a better version of Lecky Fotu that you can count on each and every Sunday. So we're going to start with those 2 individuals. Then we're going to add a player with the kind of upside not seen from the interior defensive line since Darnell Dockett, somebody who plays violent, somebody who, again, very similar to Marv, has a high football IQ that's going to come in here and outwork everybody. And then, oh, by the way, one of the best draft picks of the draft class last year was a 6th-rounder in Dante Stills that really, by the end of the year, was your most consistent defensive tackle. There's 4 guys right there that you can mold, dare I say, a respectable defensive tackle group around. And that's all you got to ask for. Is this team going to look like the 2023 or 2022 Philadelphia Eagles defensive line? No. It's going to take time. It's going to take rebuilding. It's going to take off seasons. But for the accolades that I will give them as it relates to the resources that they have, again, knowing that you were almost going to be indicted by this fan base if you didn't take Marv, which meant, okay, there aren't that many great defensive linemen. We're going to make sure we get one of them. You saw them sweating bullets in the flight plan to get Darius, so they felt a sense of urgency to add to the position group. Like, I would ask anybody, this is different than our conversation about the pass rush group, Bo. I would ask anybody, how could they have done much better given the circumstances? I don't think they could have.
Yeah, without having to pay somebody, $25-30 million a year, right? Because those were the alternatives. And you didn't even get like an opportunity with somebody like Justin Matabuke, who the Ravens, I think, wisely didn't let hit the free agent market.
Right.
So, it was Christian Wilkins or, overpay a guy like Leonard Williams, who both you and I liked on this show, but was it somebody that you wanted to go, get into a bidding war with, or can you go get somebody, as you mentioned, and I really like the point, as far as that you could rely upon to be in the lineup consistently over the last 4 years with Bilal Nichols, who hasn't missed a game, has kind of an Iron Man streak going on, and then Justin Jones, who hasn't missed a game in the last 2 years, and 2 guys that have taken on leadership roles immediately, have been leading the charge in that room, asking all the questions, getting younger guys up to speed. And then, as excited as I am about Darius Robinson, we can talk more about him and how he's kind of a technician and how he's talking about, his mechanics and his hand technique on draft night, which you don't often see. And like you just see him just be this physically imposing guy out of Missouri, an SEC player. And then I'm going to practice and I'm seeing him hit a sled or I'm seeing him hit a tackle dummy. And then I see Dante Stills hit him. And man, you got to be excited about Stills going into year 2. Like, let's not sleep on that. And you've got 4 players that I think you really can rely upon in this rotation. And then we'll see what happens with a Collier, what happens with somebody like Roy Lopez, who joined this team last year and played a good role for them. Like they've got options now where you didn't have that last year.
Well, you hit the nail on the head, options. And I do think like we can overplay the term scheme fit because a guy can either play or they can't. And again, Aaron Donald fits any scheme, right? Justin Matabuke translates scheme. But like, I do think there's something to be said. Like these guys, by all counts, handpicked by Jonathan Gannon and Monty Ossenfort, saying like, this is what I need with Nick Rawls to make our defense hum. And look no further than they identified Dante Stills in last year's draft. He can flourish in this defense. And guess what he did? And now they're doubling down with 2 free agent defensive tackles and a first-round defensive tackle. Like, there's no reason for me to sit here just like Max Melton at the cornerback position to say, you know what, I don't see the fit. This is Jonathan Gannon and Nick Rawls' defense. And if they're picking out the personnel and they're telling us, hey, this is going to work, like Kazir White worked last year before injury, right? And Jalen Thompson took that next step. I have every reason to believe them. Again, they did not add to the pass rush group. And we saw Zaven Collins struggle, B.J. Ojulari struggle at times. That's why we have, increasing concerns about, do they have juice off the edge? Yeah. I have no doubt collectively, if that foursome, let's just focus on those 2 free agents, those 2 draft picks of the last calendar year. If they stay healthy for much of this season, that unit is going to produce. That unit is going to come out of this year with 20 to 25 sacks. Dante Stills and Darius Robinson are going to be 2 cornerstone players you build around. I have no issue with that. Plus, defensive line, like, we can make fun of the Niners for taking like Assam and Thomas 3rd overall, and you often question, like, what's their ceiling? Mm-hmm. Typically, you got to be Kim Dichie-esque to just be a straight-out bust, right? Most of these guys can play. You can suit them up. They can be rotational players. And the good news for the Cardinals is, outside of Darius, that's all you need these guys to be. Come help us out. 2 out of 4 snaps on a possession, whatever it is. That's all they need right now. There's not a sense of urgency to come out and play hero ball. And I feel like, fair or not, Bo, when they signed J.J. Watt and they gave him all that money and the foundation outside of him was not there on this defense, it's like, hey, man, can you carry us? Can you lead this team defensively? And he's like, well, shit, guys, I can give you 13 sacks, but the defense is still not going to be very good under Vance Joseph. The Cardinals could not be more of the antithesis of what that was.
Yeah. Oh, and that's as refreshing as it gets. And I'll go back to my conversation with Brandon Thorne when I was just kind of asking him, like, where have they improved? And he looks at the collection of guys from Jones to Nichols and Darius Robinson. It's all guys geared up to slow down the run.
That's
like,
right.
Are they going to be really some dudes in the pass rush? Like, hopefully they can maybe do some things that we're not expecting, especially Robinson. And I think he's going to have to in order for this team to really generate enough pressure. But I think where it's just going to be night and day from last year to this year is, like, you had guys up front that were either getting blown off the line of scrimmage or they weren't fast enough. What did Justin Fields, joke about in his post-game presser is that they were so slow. And when you look at Jones, when you look at Nichols and Darius Robinson, they're all versatile pieces because they're big and they're athletic.
Yeah.
And I think that, like, if they can slow down the opposing offense's rushing attacks consistently enough to where it wasn't like, hey, they're going to gash you for 4, 5 yard, 6 yard carries on first down. It just completely puts you way behind in the offense in such a conducive situation for success, either to move the chains or make big plays. I think that they are in just such a better spot that they're going to be able to put guys in 2nd and long, 3rd and long. And then, you're going to look to your pass rush and say, if you don't get enough pressure, like, okay, we need to work on that area. But I think it's going to be, at least the run defense is ratcheted up at least a little bit way more than where it was at this time last year.
Well, I think it was a big reason why they went 0-6 in the NFC West last year was you played against 3 A coaches who were smart enough to say, you know what, we're not going to get cute. The Cardinals literally don't have the personnel to stop the run. Like those Niner games and maybe the Ram games to a lesser extent, like Pete Carroll, Sean McVay, when they wanted to, it's just like, this game's over. Like we're going to put together 12 to 13 play drives. And like, unless we fumble the handoff, you're not going to be able to stop us. Where in return, it's like Gannon's going to take advantage of the Nick Siriannis of the world because they're not I don't think very smart, a very good coach. And you can say, I can out scheme you, even though your personnel is significantly better than mine. Yeah. Now we've evened the playing field, to your point, Bo, to some extent, where, okay, Brock Purdy, let's see you make a throw on third down. This is not 2nd and 3 every time you line up under center. So giving your back seven an opportunity to make a play, because this is a back seven now that we feel like got some young players, some talented players that take the ball away. But they were never in a position. That's why it was so impressive to see Jalen do it last year. They were never in a position to do that because the run defense was so terrible. Like we talk about the pass rush and we think it might be a concern, but you have to get to passing downs first. I mean, like week 1, as much as Buffalo wants to throw the football, they're going to come out and test this defensive line. And I think they're going to be up for the challenge.
Yeah. I mean, you're going to have to be technically sound against a guy like Josh Allen, who, you probably put a spy on him. And then James Cook, who we can look at the running back rankings and scratch your head like, what do they see? But and he only had 2 touchdowns because, Allen took most of them away from him, but he was good between the 20s, right? I mean, he was over 1,000 yards, and he's going to be somebody that they're going to have to account for. But if you can take James Cook out of the game, and then you got those receivers that Buffalo is going to throw you. I mean, I know we're just talking week 1, might be getting ahead of ourselves, but I mean, you can put yourself and your offense on the field a lot more, maybe put them, at a deficit early on if you play your cards right defensively.